Hey everyone, it's your homegirl Ramsey. So, truth be told, I get crazy giddy every time fall rolls around. It is the absolute best time of year, and pumpkins are hands down my favorite shape to decorate. The options are literally endless, and I'm going to show you just how easy it is to achieve some cool designs with one simple cutter and minimal cookie tools. Check it out. Let's start with a very basic pumpkin by piping the stem. I use stiff icing in a tan light brown shade, and I just kind of make wavy stick motions upwards, if that makes sense. I do the stem this way usually because it looks a tad more realistic. Now, the cardinal rule when it comes to decorating pumpkins is to flood in sections. You can make as many sections as you want, but you need to flood them in alternating order to achieve that dimensional bumpy pumpkin look we all love. For each section, I'm gonna lay down a few squiggles of stiff icing first before I flood using a toothpaste consistency. Those two tactics just work well together to keep each section on the puffier side as it dries. Now you want to take your scribe tool and smooth out the sections that you flooded with the toothpaste consistency and let this set for a good 30 minutes at minimum before you begin to flood the remaining sections. Again, this will just help make the sections more prominent. After the first round of sections has set, now you just repeat the process. So as you can see here, I totally dented one of my sections with an icing bag. Ugh, it happens. However, I'm actually a little happy that mistake happened so that I can show you just how I fix some cookies and salvage them when I make a mistake like that. I was planning on leaving this as a simple orange harvest cute little pumpkin, but I'm going to turn it in to a fuzzy textured pumpkin now to cover up that dent. And this is how I do that. I lay down a little stiff icing and just pat, 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 pat with a fan brush. Make sure you do this in sections as well once it's all dry, and you can just kind of watch the effect it gives on the pumpkin and how it hides my mistake. Now you can leave it as a cute fuzzy pumpkin, or you can take it one step further and add some lines just for an extra layer of dimension. And there's one super simple way to decorate a pumpkin. Next up, we're going to use a few of the same techniques as before, introduce some new ones, and switch up the color scheme to a beautiful cranberry burgundy fall shade. I just love this color. You'll see here that I'm outlining the pumpkin in sections using stiff icing like before, but I'm leaving a tiny space in between each one. Now, why would I do that? It's totally normal to see a little bit of the naked cookie underneath using this technique. And what it's going to do for you is create a big level of depth on this cookie. It's going to look super realistic once you're finished decorating this. This is one of my favorite techniques to use on a pumpkin. So just like before, you are going to flood in sections with your toothpaste consistency. Let the first round of sections crust before you move on to the next ones. But as you flood the second round of sections, be careful that you don't let your flood icing spill over into those little tiny gaps in between the sections. That's what's going to create the depth effect for you. Your pumpkin should look a little like this when dry. Now, you will need some brown edible petal dust and a brush here to dry dust inside those tiny spaces and around the perimeter of the pumpkin to really bring it to life. That's what I'm doing here. And as you can see, the brown dust is going to cover and color your naked cookie underneath so it looks like it's part of the pumpkin. Here, I'm just using Wilton brown edible petal dust that I picked up at Walmart. Just make sure your cookie is fully dry in every section before you begin to dust. As you can see here, there's really no big skill involved in dry dusting. You just kind of apply it generously and dust it wherever it goes and just brush off the excess, and you'll have a very pretty dimensional pumpkin full of depth. Okay, for this round of decorating, I'm switching over to the spooky side. I'm going to do a fully white pumpkin with a black stem, and I'm going to outline and flood it the exact same way we've been doing before. Once everything is fully dry, I'm going to take my rainbow dust pen using the fine tip. This is an edible marker and I love this brand. I'm going to draw just a little spider web and a spider coming down from it, just something a little fun to add to this spooky pumpkin. Now I'm also going to dry dust this pumpkin in its ridges using the same petal dust from Wilton, just in a darker black silvery shade. Again, this will give it much more dimension and depth and give it that boost of spookiness. It's such a fun and easy Halloween design. Speaking of Halloween designs, we're gonna go for another one. This is gonna be our classic jack-o'-lantern. What you wanna do first is throw down some icing, some black icing, and then you're gonna smooth it out either with a scraper or you can do it with a paintbrush. I like to put a little edible glitter spray in there just for an extra effect. Then, using your orange stiff icing, you're going to pipe out whatever jack-o'-lantern face you'd like. You can make it cute, you can make it creepy, the options are endless. Then you're going to outline your pumpkin ridges. And as you can see here, I'm taking it down to just 4 sections. Once again, you can do as many sections as you like. Just make sure you pay attention to where you piped his face so that you don't make the ridges in the wrong places. And you just do what we've been doing. Flood in sections, let it crust, and then come back in and flood your remaining sections. Be careful with jack-o'-lantern faces here that you don't let the icing run into the eyes, the mouth, the nose, whatever face you have. You want those to stay the color that's underneath. Now you can leave this little guy cute as he is and simple, or you can come back in with some more of that dark petal dust in his ridges and around his perimeter just to make him a little spooky looking. So I'm really feeling that beautiful cranberry shade we were doing earlier, so I'm gonna bring that back for our last pumpkin decorating technique. This one, you're gonna flood and outline in sections just as we've done before. You should be a pro at that by now. But there's one extra step once it's dry, another technique I'm gonna show you that can take your pumpkin decorating to the next level, and it's super simple. While I finish up this flood, I should go ahead and mention something you may have been wondering about. Yes, those are Ziploc baggies I'm using for my icing. It's just something I used in the beginning and it kind of stuck. So for this technique, you will need some sort of stencil holder and stencil pattern. I'm going to use a sweater knit pattern here. And I'm going to basically just scrape icing over the pattern that sits on top of my cookie. You might have to squirt a little bit of the icing on top of the stencil itself, just to make sure as you're pulling the icing over the cookie that you cover each little open spot of the stencil. Once you take the stencil off, you are gonna have some icing that sticks off the edges a little bit. And all you do to remedy that is take your scribe and roll over the perimeter of your icing and just make sure you wipe off your scribe tool each time. And you can leave it as is or pipe on those pumpkin lines that give it a little extra dimension. And there's your simple pumpkin cutter, 5 different ways. For the orange pumpkin look, I used orange, pumpkin, and a chocolate brown mixture. For the cranberry, I used burgundy, eggplant, and a little bit of super red to create that shade. And for the brown stem, I just mixed a little warm brown and a tiny bit of avocado. I hope you had fun decorating pumpkins with me. Happy fall, y'all, and subscribe for more.